You're in no contact, so now what? This is Coach Lee, and I'm going to talk to you about that because a lot of people can really understand the need for backing away, being in no contact when someone initiates a breakup and dumps you. But a lot of times they'll say, but now what do I do? And what do I do if they contact me? And is there a point when I contact them? They have questions like that, and I'm going to get into that in this video. I'll start with when your ex reaches out, or if your ex reaches out, because that's usually what I have found people tend to worry about. What do I do when they reach out? What do I do when I'm around them going forward if they want to see me and things like that? The first thing I'll tell you is that when they contact you, they are likely uncertain they want to get back together. Now, they may be pretty sure. They may think that most of them, the majority of what they feel, wants to get back together, but they aren't certain. And that means that you really want to stay away from difficulty, pressure, and emotion. And so that's the first thing that I'll tell you. I know that telling someone, try not to be emotional or try to resist your emotions is sort of like saying, try not to be hungry because it's a natural response. But I'm just telling you, do your best. And if you're aware that you need to really hold back on the emotions and not lean into them and not let them just explode when your ex reaches out, you will do better and you'll know to avoid it. But the reason I'm telling you this is not because I'm telling you to be dishonest. It's because we don't want any more pressure on them than there has to be. Because if they're reaching out, they've already gone over that hump. They've kind of forced themselves to do that. And we want to make this part easy because if it's emotional, they might be upset. They might regret contacting you because they'll think this was more difficult than I thought, or I feel really guilty. And I'm not saying they shouldn't feel guilty. I'm just saying if you want the best chance of getting them back, just listen to me on these things. You don't want them to feel guilty, but you also don't want them to feel like that if they contact you, that you're going to just rejoice and have a party and say, we're back together now. This is the greatest day of my life, because that's a lot of pressure to put on them. And if they're not certain, then it can make them not do it again because they don't want to lead you on. And so we want to make sure that when they reach out to you, that they don't feel that they have led you on or that you have kind of read into this or thought more of this than there actually is. Because sometimes they just think, I'm just going to check on them. I'm going to see how that makes me feel, how we interact, because I'm not sure. And sometimes it's where they feel like, yes, they think that they want to get back together, but they don't know for certain. And you want them to feel like, even if they're not certain, that they can interact with you, because that gives you an opportunity to reattract them. So you don't want to be emotional. You don't want them to feel like there's a whole lot of pressure and that they are now bound by contract or that they have to kind of live up to this. You want them to feel like it could just be a conversation, catching up, and that's okay too. Number 2 is part of this. It's similar, but don't mention the breakup. Try not to get into the issues or the fact that you broke up. They know that. You don't have to remind them. Don't talk about how miserable you've been. Obviously, that's the truth, and you deserve to say that, but not right now. If they bring it up, if they ask how you've been, say something realistic like, I've been all right. I'm doing better. Or you can just simply say, well, as you know, breakups are difficult, but I'm doing pretty well. Something like that. And then try to change the subject. Ask them a question about how someone's doing or a specific detail. And if I were you and your ex hasn't reached out yet, I would go ahead and make a list of questions you want to ask them about how they're doing. This might be difficult, and I get that. But in that moment, it might be difficult for you to think of those things. And so if you have this list maybe on your phone and you can go look at a file and see these things that you kind of thought, I want to talk about this. If they contact me, and they should be things that are not about the breakup, like I've already mentioned, then that will actually help you, because it's going to be difficult in that moment to remember those things. If you've been in a moment or a situation like that, you know what I'm talking about. So go ahead and make that list. It might be a little bit therapeutic, even though it's difficult. And then when they do reach out to you and you're on the phone with them, you're on speakerphone or whatever, you can just look at all those questions and it will be very smooth and it won't be as difficult for you. And you can pre-think about these things so that they don't lead to a lot of emotion and difficulty. If they do naturally, like if you're asking about a loved one who maybe has been having some difficult health situations, then obviously that could become emotional if they're not doing well or something like that. That's okay. That happens. That's life. That's just being human. But in general, just try to keep it light, especially the first time they reach out. Number 3 is encourage a face-to-face. And I don't mean that you actually verbally do that, but you're looking for an opportunity to do that, because sometimes you will find that your ex will casually mention something like that or something right next to that or preceding that. And they will kind of be looking for something positive from you that can encourage them to actually ask that of you or to suggest it out loud. And so you want to be looking for that. And you have to make this decision. But if things are going really well and it seems like they're just right on the edge of suggesting the two of you get together, it can be a bit of a gamble, but a lot of this is, it's okay if you were to say, let's get coffee and catch up sometime. Just see what they say. If they say, yeah, I could do this week, then you know that they're really interested. If they say, yeah, sure, we can do that sometime, and they don't really offer a day, that's okay. Hold back. You can say, I'm good 3 days this week, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever. What days are you free? You could say that, and you could kind of set something up. But if they say, I don't know, and they don't seem like they're committal to that, back off, leave them alone. Show that there's no pressure when they contact you. Because again, refer back to what I said earlier. We want them to think that contacting you is not going to put a lot of pressure on them, that they don't feel like they're obligated to see you face to face, or that this means that you two are back together 100% because they may not be certain yet. And the fact that they're reaching out to you does show they care, does show there's some interest there. You just don't want to scare that away. You don't want to stifle that. Let them keep coming to you. Leave room for them to keep coming to you. But you can suggest casually this meetup. They may not take it up. They may right away. If they don't, that's okay. Back off. Sometimes you'll find that in a few days, they'll be the one to say, I can do Thursday. Just out of the blue, you'll get that text from them after they've already contacted you and you've suggested these things. So that's kind of how you can handle that. But it is very important that you do get face-to-face with them, because you are your most attractive self and they are their most attractive self when you are face-to-face. And that's how a lot of couples can really get back together. Playing the pen pal thing for a while and not being bold about trying to get the face-to-face. Again, you've already heard me say, I'm not saying that you just come out and suggest it, but if they're right up on the edge of that and it sure sounds like they'd be open, it's okay to suggest it that way. But don't just come out early on in the conversation and suggest that. But if it happens, that's great. People who play pen pal because they're kind of being really cautious, they can end up just kind of letting a distance settle in that even is beyond the breakup. And it's just simply that they can miss you and then they contact you and you don't ever see each other face to face, and it can just kind of fade away as they tend to get used to the idea that you two are not together. And I'm just saying that it would be ideal if you two can get face to face. Now I'm going to talk about what to do if your ex does not reach out. First thing is, you need to decide if you're willing to reach out, because in a lot of videos you've heard me say, ideally you wouldn't, just for the sake of your own dignity and to really show them that that's not going to happen, because after enough time passes, they lose the ability to expect you to reach out. Now, obviously, that could mean that you just don't hear from them. And what you actually have to ask yourself is, does it matter to me? Does it make me think that maybe this is not the best partner for me if they can go that long without even checking on me, without even wanting to hear my voice, without just making sure that I haven't gone off to someone else and I'm gone now and they could never get me back, that they were able to make it that long? Now, I'm not saying a few weeks or even 2 or 3 months, but if you start to reach that 8 month, 9, a year, and they haven't even reached out to check on you, I'm not saying it can't work out, because I've seen that before. I've even seen it after more than 10 years. But I'm not saying that that's ideal. I'm not saying that that happens in most situations. And I am saying that you should look at that and think very carefully about that. What does it say if this person can go that long without even checking on you, without even hearing your voice and the things that I mentioned? Think about that before you do. And consider that this person left. And a lot of the times, based on what I hear in coaching sessions, and you can book one of those with me at myexpatcoach.com, and that's where my emergency breakup is as well, at myexpatcoach.com. And I get deeper into the things that I'm talking about now, especially kind of what to do when you're face to face, which I will be talking about in just a minute in this video. But on a coaching session or in the emergency breakup kit, you can get a lot more information and deeper dives into that. And that's at myexpatcoach.com, myexpatcoach.com. But consider that a lot of the situations I hear about, the person presented that they wanted the breakup and left. They didn't say, I want to work on this because we're in a committed relationship. They didn't say, I know that feelings tend to fade. The fireworks and the passion, the limerence of a new relationship, that feeling, that experience does fade with everyone. And people who don't understand that oftentimes will chase that new relationship feel, that limerence. They'll chase it. And when it goes away, they'll go to somebody else and exhaust that. And they'll just keep doing that. And it makes for someone who is not able to develop real authentic connections, commitment, and family with people. Because in a family, you're committed even when it's bad, even when you're having difficulty with that person, even when you don't get along. You are committed to being their family, being loyal and supportive of them, or at least it's how it's supposed to be. So if this person didn't even try to work on it, if they just said, well, my feelings faded, so I'm done, and left you, consider that. Does that make them a good partner? It doesn't. I'm not saying it can't work, but I am saying you need to think about this before you actually put your neck out and risk more rejection or just risk more of your emotional investment in this person. So give yourself time to really think about this and take your emotions out of it. Logically, is this person a good partner? Because they've left you. They're not talking to you. So you're not bound to be with them. If this is a marriage we're talking about, you definitely need to book a coaching session with me, or you can get my free mini course on saving a marriage that you'll find at marriageradio.com. That's marriageradio.com, and it's under the marriage help section. But if this person is just gone and they didn't try to work on it, it's possible there's a better partner out there for you. As a matter of fact, it's likely that you can find somebody who's willing to work and who understands there will be a fading of those early fireworks of a new relationship. And that doesn't mean that they just have to leave, but that they understand that all relationships go through that, and that we have other things. We have companionship, we have commitment, we have the feeling of family, and you will still have that passion. It's just not going to be the only fuel of the relationship. You want someone who understands that and commits to you like you were their family, and that they don't have to feel sky-high fireworks for you all the time to love you and want to be with you. That's who you're really looking for. This person could learn that, and no contact can often teach them that, because they lose you and they know that you're not going to contact them. So the next time they kind of have a fading, if you two do get back together, the next time that they have that fading, they know that if they break up with you, they're not hearing from you, and that they could lose you, that you could move on and be with somebody else. And so it can deter them from doing that. But keep that in mind before you reach out. So if you've made that decision, I'm going to reach out to them, I just want to. Sometimes people will even say they do it for closure. That's your business. In my opinion, closure is when they say they're not going to work on it and they just leave you and they don't even give you a chance. They just walk away from you knowing that this hurts, and they're just letting you know they're not even going to try anymore. That should be closure. And the BS excuses like, I just need to work on myself, that don't mean anything, and that's not the real reason. We know the real reason is that they're not feeling the fireworks and the butterflies and all that like they used to, so they don't have the motivation. And so they think they can say, I just need to work on myself, and that you can't really argue with that because it's so deeply personal. And I won't get into that because I talk about that a lot in other videos, but keep all of that in mind. So if you decide you want to reach out to them for closure or just to see, and then you're going to move on or whatever, it's your decision. I'm not telling you what you should do. I've given my thoughts on it. But I would suggest reaching out with something very simple. A lot of people think it has to be magic words, but actually that can put more pressure on them. It can make them less likely to talk to you. Keep it simple and say something like, it's been a few months since we've spoken. I hope you're having a great fall and that you're doing well. And notice that I didn't ask a question. It is something that they can see that there's the invitation for them to answer. But a question can kind of put pressure that they have to answer. But if you make it a statement, I hope things are going well with you, it doesn't put the pressure on that a question can sometimes do. So that's one way to do it. And a lot of times you're just trying to see if they'll even talk to you. That's where you have to start. Will they even talk to me? Because if they do, obviously you can take that step and go to another step. And that would be that you would, like I mentioned in the previous section of this video, encourage a face-to-face. It doesn't mean you have to bring it up right away or be the first one to bring it up. But if they seem very open to it, or maybe they're just kind of right there and you think, I think they might want to, what do you have to lose? It's okay to just say, let's get together and catch up. Let's have coffee and catch up. When are you free this week? It's a bit bold, but what do you have to lose? What's wrong with being a bit bold? You kind of need to do that sometimes if you're thinking that you need to get closure from this. Here's your opportunity, because if they don't do that, that's oftentimes something that can help you. Just say, I tried and they didn't want to even meet up for coffee, so I'm going to move on with my life. It can actually help you emotionally, where if you've had difficulty, this can actually help you feel better. But hopefully they'll say, Thursday works for me. How about 3:00, whatever. And you actually get to be face to face with them. I get into this a lot in coaching sessions and some of the emergency breakup kit at myexpatcoach.com. But if you get that opportunity, you meet face to face with them, I suggest you let it last no longer than 45 minutes to an hour tops. And people will tell me, I had your voice in my head, but it just felt so good. So I just kept going and going. And finally I could tell he was bored or she was bored. And that's what you don't want to happen. You don't want that lull where they kind of look around, check their phone, and then you know it's coming. They need to get going. You want it to be where when they walk away from that get-together, they wish it had lasted longer. They need to be the one who wish that it would have lasted longer. So 45 minutes to an hour. And when it feels like it's going great, like this is terrific, we're talking like we used to, we're laughing, we're reminiscing about old stories we share together or inside jokes, romantic memories, that kind of thing, and you think it's going wonderful, you have to interrupt that and say, it's really been great catching up. I actually have to go. I have an appointment. And it would be great if you actually did have one, because you don't want a lie in there. And you also want it to be something that if they were to check, that it could be proven. Maybe it's a dentist appointment. Maybe you're just meeting a friend. Maybe it's something to do with work. Maybe it's something at the house. You have to meet the lawn care person or whatever it is. But you want to be able to just, after 45 minutes to an hour, say, it's been great seeing you, but I need to get going. So that when they leave, they wish it would have lasted longer. That's what's going to pull them back to contact you. And you want to be playful. You want to have a good time. It's sort of like a first date. Give them a reason to want to get back together with you. Don't bring up the breakup. Don't bring up the difficulty of that, or really the relationship. You already know this person. Treat them as you would if this was one of the early dates and your goal is to get another date. You're going to have a great time, show them a great time, and then leave with them wanting more. And I get into this more in the emergency breakup kit. But this is really, if you can get this part right, you're doing very well as far as you're not putting the wrong pressure on them. You're giving them something to think about as far as this is what the relationship was like and it could be this way again. And you're leaving them wanting more, which hopefully will encourage them to reach out to you, and you can continue to grow this thing and maybe fully, quote, get back together. And this is where you can be bold. I can't get too much into this because this video has already gone long, but you can walk them to their car and there can be some affection there. I get into that in the emergency breakup kit, but also in coaching sessions about things you can do and things you can say where you can actually reattract them with your actions. And some of these can be very romantic, but a lot of it you probably can already come up with and you already have in your mind. So I hope that clarifies some direction. If you're in no contact, you're wondering, now what do I do after no contact has gone on for a time? I wanted to give you some basic direction. Obviously, there's more advanced things that I get into in the emergency breakup kit or a coaching session, but I hope this has been helpful to you, at least to give you some direction. If you like this video, please like it. Please click subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. And please share this with someone if they're going through a breakup. This has been Coach Lee, and as always, thank you for watching.